And we begin this Sunday morning with the cover-up of the origins of COVID-19 and the GOP investigation now underway. The U.S. Energy Department last week confirmed what we first reported to you on this program back in February of 2020, that COVID-19 most likely originated from a laboratory leak in China, not from a wet market, which Communist China continues to claim. This follows the same conclusion reached by the FBI. Arkansas Republican Senator Tom Cotton was first to break the news on the origins of COVID-19 right here on this program.
This virus did not originate in the Wuhan animal market. Epidemiologists who are widely respected from China, who have published a study in the international journal The Lancet, have demonstrated that several of the original cases did not have any contact with that food market. The virus went into that food market before it came out. We also know that just a few miles away from that food market is China's only biosafety level 4 super laboratory that researches human infectious diseases.
Following Cotton's appearance, the pushback from the mainstream media to the lab leak theory was immediate. Major news publications such as the New York Times and the Washington Post were quick to dismiss it and attack Senator Cotton, instead of standing up to the Chinese Communist Party, which at the time was refuting it, while also refusing any investigators into that Wuhan lab. The CCP also had cornered the market for protective equipment, such as masks and plastic gloves, which we also reported at that time. On television, CNN and MSNBC were also quick to attack Tom Cotton's comments, instead backing the narrative from the CCP.
Tom Cotton a couple of days ago spouting a conspiracy theory that the Chinese made this virus up.
In the 1980s, I remember when the far left trafficked in rumors about HIV having been invented in CIA labs. The far right has now found its own virus conspiracy theory.
Senator Tom Cotton actually closed his office this morning, calling it the Wuhan virus as he did so. And he has, of course, been out in public talking about conspiracy theories, frankly, as to where the virus came from.
I've seen this kind of, stuff peddled in the right-wing media that I still try to keep an eye on. But it's still stunning to read it in a triple byline piece of reporting about the intelligence community being asked to go make it true because Trump wants it true.
We are left with the reality that Fauci opens his mouth with facts and Trump opens his mouth to say anything that makes the virus seem small and not a problem.
Despite the conclusions reached by both the Energy Department and the FBI, Dr. Fauci still insists COVID-19 did not originate from a lab, telling the Boston Globe, quote, "I don't see any data for a lab leak." This after the NIH-funded EcoHealth Alliance, which sent that money, the funding, to the Wuhan lab for gain-of-function research. Senator Cotton spoke with me on Thursday over on Fox Business's Mornings with Maria about the initial response by the federal government and the mainstream media to the origins of COVID.
The only conspiracy back in the early part of 2020 was a conspiracy of silence among liberals in the media and the federal bureaucracy and Democrats in Congress to try to suppress the common sense, evidence-based conclusion that so many Arkansans had reached, is that the Chinese communists were responsible because of their negligent practices in this lab for unleashing this pandemic on the world. That's the only conspiracy theory that was circulating around. And unfortunately, you still see, in some degree, that conspiracy of silence.
Yes, to this day, Communist China has not been forthcoming in providing evidence in the origins of COVID-19 and has not been held accountable for the virus, which has killed nearly 7 million people worldwide, according to the World Health Organization. Joining me now is the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. He is Ohio Republican Congressman Jim Jordan. Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for being here.
Good to be with you, Maria.
You've got 2 upcoming hearings this week, the subcommittee on COVID, and then, of course, the weaponization of government. What are we going to learn this week, do you think?
Well, first on the COVID issue, understand that on January 31st, 10:32 p.m., 2020. So right at the get-go, Dr. Fauci gets an email from Dr. Christian Anderson, which says virus looks engineered, virus not consistent with evolutionary theory. The next day, he gets another email from Dr. Gary. Now, these are doctors he's handed out our tax dollars to over the years. Dr. Gary's email says, "I don't know how this happens in nature. It would be easy to do in a lab." That same day, February 1st, 2020. So again, right at the start, that same day, Dr. Fauci organizes a conference call. Him and Dr. Collins get on there with Dr. Gary, Dr. Anderson, all these other virologists. They get on there, and 3 days later, everybody changes their story. The same guy who said this would be easy to do in a lab says, "Oh, now you're crazy if you think it came from a lab." The same guy that says, "I don't know how this looks engineered," he changes his story And then the kicker is, 3 months later, those same two doctors, Dr. Anderson and Dr. Gary, get a several million dollar grant from Dr. Fauci to continue their research. So the fundamental question is, why was Dr. Fauci so consumed with making sure the narrative wasn't about the lab? I think it's because they were doing gain-of-function research there. He didn't want that out. And that was the narrative that everyone on the left bought into, even though the facts and common sense, maybe most importantly, pointed to the lab leak theory.
I mean, this is something that we should all agree on.
Yeah.
Let's get to the bottom of this disease, this virus that killed 7 million people across the world. I don't understand the media immediately going with this Democrat narrative and the CCP narrative rather than forcing for an investigation.
Yeah, why not just give us the facts, be transparent with this, but understand with this virus, they have told us all kinds of things that turned out to be false. I mean, they told us it didn't come from a lab. Now, again, it looks like it sure did because the Department of Energy, FBI, everyone says it came from a lab. Now, they said it wasn't gain-of-function research. Sure looks like it was. They said it wasn't our tax dollars used at that Wuhan Institute of Virology. Yes, they were through EcoHealth. They went there. And then, of course, they told us that the vaccinated couldn't get it. The vaccinated couldn't transmit it. They told us that there was no such thing as natural immunity. This would be the first virus in history where there's no such thing as natural immunity. So time and time again, they told us things that were not accurate. Again, the fundamental question is why? What was was it politics motivating them or what? But I always tell people, I always say, we're Americans. We're big boys and girls. We can handle it.
Right.
It's supposed to be a government of the people, by the people, for the people. So tell we the people the truth. Quit trying to quit lying to us.
But this subject dovetails into your other investigations because you've got the weaponization of government, and you see how the narrative on all of these subjects is just driven by potentially compromised administration or federal agencies. What are you expecting in terms of this Twitter files hearing that you're also holding next week?
Well, we're going to have two journalists, Matt Taibbi and Mr. Schellenberger, are going to come in and talk about what they've seen. And understand, Elon Musk made available what he described as a crime scene, where you could talk about how government was pressuring the big tech companies to prime and prep them and shape the narrative. And that's exactly what they did. Maybe the best example is the laptop story in the run-up to the 2020 presidential election. Because Joel Roth, the head of trust and safety at Twitter, he has testified, sworn declaration, where he said, in the run-up to that election, I had weekly meetings with ODNI, FBI, and the Department of Homeland Security. In those meetings, they told me that there was likely going to be a hack and dump operation. It was likely to come in October of 2020, and it was likely to involve Hunter Biden. Now, think about that. They told him what was going to happen, when it was going to happen, and who it was going to involve. And then, of course, along comes the New York Post story on October 14th, just days before the most important election we have, a presidential election. Now, for me, the fundamental, maybe they get the time right, because we're used to an October surprise every 4 years, but they got the time, the method, and the person. How did they know? This, like, these guys are clairvoyant. This is amazing. Yeah. How did they get it? Because they had the laptop in their possession, and they are prepping all of big tech and, frankly, all of mainstream media to buy into what inevitably is going to happen. Something's going to leak on the Hunter Biden laptop issue. And then when it comes, they suppress that story. And everyone, the big tech, big media, all join in. And the clincher on the deal was 5 days after that New York Post story. Guess what happens? The 51 former Intel officials, October 19th, 5 days later, signed the now famous letter where it says, this story has all the earmarks, all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. And the deal was sealed, and that whole story got suppressed, and we all know it would have impacted the outcome, I believe, of that most important election we have, the presidential election.
So, election interference. When you talk about the FBI having the laptop, if they had the laptop, then they knew about the evidence of influence peddling. They knew about the Biden family taking tens of millions of dollars from communist China. How much of this is a China story as well?
I think it is, and that's exactly what Chairman Comer is working on the Oversight Committee. What we're working on in the Judiciary Committee is the link with these agencies that I think were suppressing free speech rights of the American people and using big tech to accomplish that. But yeah, this is as wrong as it gets. And understand, this isn't the first time it seems that the FBI meddled in an election. 2016, we know about the dossier and spying on President Trump's campaign. 2018, it was the Mueller investigation that was going on. 2020 is what we just talked about, the Biden laptop story. And in 2022, 91 days before the election, they raid President Trump's home. And they know about Joe Biden having a classified document concern before the election, and they don't tell us about that. So maybe just stay out of the elections, FBI, and let the American people decide who we want represented.
But you're getting stonewalled again. The AG will not put a special counsel. You've been calling for a special counsel on this influence peddling story. You're not getting it. You're waiting on what from your requests?
All we've said is why isn't there a special counsel for the Hunter Biden issue? A number of us had inquired because, you know, if these are special counsel when there's a conflict. And there certainly seems to be a conflict when you got a U.S. attorney investigating the son of the former candidate for president, current president of the United States. Why isn't there a special counsel? We want to know how was that decision made that there's not a special counsel there? Because it seems like there probably should be. So that's what we were asking in the letter we sent this past week.
I want to ask you what you're going to do about all of this, because I know that you've gotten stonewalled. James Comer's getting stonewalled in oversight. Let's take a short break and then talk about that. We continue our conversation with the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee here on set, Congressman Jim Jordan. We'll be right back. Oh, welcome back. We continue our conversation this morning with the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman Jim Jordan is with me this morning. Congressman, before we went to the break, talked about what you're going to do about the stonewalling. I should point out that Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn asked Merrick Garland why he's stonewalling your efforts, and he denied it. What are you going to do if you continue to get stonewalled?
Well, we think we laid a lot of the groundwork. You have to do this accommodation process, send lots of letters before you ever even go to the compulsory, the subpoena process. And so we've been laying it out. I think we probably sent more subpoenas than maybe the rest of Congress combined thus far. I mean, not that we're trying to send subpoenas. We're just trying to get the information. So we're trying to lay it all out and do what we have to do to get that information. But we just want to get the facts on the table so that we can propose legislation and then also use the appropriations process to change the behavior. I mean, think just about the FBI, what we've learned in the past few months. First of all, we learned last year, a year and a half ago, actually, that they were targeting parents. Then a few weeks ago, we learned they were targeting traditional Catholics. And now we learned, the story that Fox broke, we learned where the threat tag used after the threat tag put on people used after the Dobbs decision was actually being turned to go after and investigate pro-lifers. Now, after the Dobbs decision, what was happening out there was hundreds of churches and crisis pregnancy centers were being attacked. But yet, according to the whistleblower who talked to us under oath, he said they were encouraging him to go look into pro-life leaders, for goodness sake.
Wow. That
made no sense. And that's what he said, is it makes no sense to me. Those aren't the people who are protesting now. They appreciated the Dobbs decision, frankly, something they've been working for a long time. So we want to get all the facts for those issues and other things like what we talked about before with the Twitter files.
Tell me about the whistleblowers. How many whistleblowers are you interviewing, and are they going to come public?
We've talked, 3 of them are. Those are the ones who were willing to come public and sit down for a transcribed interview. There are actually a couple dozen others who haven't been willing to come public. They've met with our staff. Our staff has interviewed them. But if they're willing to come public, then we'll do what we call a transcribed interview, similar to a deposition, which is under oath. And you ask them questions, you get the transcript and everything else. 3 of them have done that. And we've learned some very valuable information from those 3, like what I just described that Mr. O'Boyle told us about how that threat tag was used and actually began to be turned and go after pro-lifers.
So what are you going to do to get to the bottom of this if you're not getting the information that you're requesting? Stephen Miller, who we're going to speak to in a little while, he said the GOP needs to use the appropriations process.
Yep.
Is that what your plans are?
Definitely. I mean, as we go through, look, we're going to focus on the attacks on the First Amendment and a number of areas there, whether DHS and the Disinformation Governance Board, what we saw from FBI coordinating and colluding with big tech to suppress information and shape and mold the narrative. We're going to look at all that. We're also going to look at this disparate treatment, this different standard that we see from the FBI, where they treat pro-lifers one way and then protesters a different way, and other areas as well. We're going to kind of focus there, and then we're going to look to propose legislation. And in the end, the real power of Congress, the real power of the legislative branch is the power of the purse. And we're going to have to use that both on this issue, where we think the government's been targeting the very people it's supposed to serve, but also, frankly, on the border. I think we're going to have to look at ways to use the appropriation process to deal with the border situation, which is one of the other key areas the Judiciary Committee has jurisdiction over.
So what you're suggesting is you'll hold back funding to the FBI?
Yeah, or say this funding can't be used for X, this funding can't be used for Y, or limit the funding overall. Those are things you have to do, or you don't have the leverage to change again, this egregious behavior we're seeing from these agencies.
Real quick on the border, 5 million plus illegals apprehended on Joe Biden's watch. Another 1.5 million gotaways. You're going to come out with legislation, potential legislation?
Yeah, we are. That'll be in about a month. We're working on that. We think it'll be multiple bills that will address the situation. And understand this administration decided on day one, January 20th, 2021, they decided that they were going to open the border because Joe Biden announced we're not going to have remain in Mexico, we're no longer going to build the wall, and we're not going to deport anyone coming in for an immigration violation. And as a result, people come, they know they won't have to wait in Mexico, there's no wall to get over, and then when they get in, they're not going to be deported. And you've seen this, Shazam, you see this influx of people, which was, I think, anyone can understand when you have those policies in place, you're going to get this. And so we're going to try to firm up the policies that were in place under President Trump with legislation.
All right, we will leave it there. We'll be watching. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
You bet, thank you.
The Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Ohio Republican Congressman Jim.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.